Good afternoon, everyone. Adrienne Grace here. I'm a mindset and high performance coach. And we are in the middle of my Millionaire Mindset Week, where I launched my podcast just yesterday. It's 5 days. And if you signed up for that, you've been receiving them. And it's not too late to sign up for it if you still want to do that. And then you can see the last 2 days. So there's 4 episodes. They're less than 10 minutes each. They're super quick. But we're on here today because I want to give a couple more tips on the millionaire mindset and how millionaires think. And when I say millionaires, I keep talking about this, but it's not really about the money. I'm talking about people who are living a very rich and fulfilled life. So, and I'll get into that, but we probably all know of people who are making a lot of money and are actually really miserable. And to me, that's not a way of living. And that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about like truly wealthy, successful, happy people that live just life to the fullest. And then I'm going to answer some questions. So everyone's been getting text message access to me today or this week who is signed up for the podcast. So I've been having some questions come in, so I will answer those. The first thing I want to talk about is the 3 different ways the population earns money. Now, the first way is called M1, and about 96% of the population does this, okay? And that's trading time for money. And it's not always great because we only have so much time, right? And there's only so much time that you can trade for money. And that's where 96% of the population is, right? And that's probably if you have the belief or the thought like, oh, I have to work harder or I have to work more to make more money, then that's where you reside, right? You're trading your time for money. Now, there's a couple things that aren't great about that, not just that we have a finite amount of time, but you don't want to spend all of your time working, right? You don't want to have to be trading your time all the time. And what I find is that most people are even in careers that they don't necessarily love. And so they're basically trading their life for something that they don't even like just to make money. Now, M2 is only about 3% of the population uses, and it's you invest money to make money. Now, that's a great way to earn income, but the only problem is you have to have money to invest in order to be making a substantial amount and making enough to live off of, right, to get there. So that's only 3% of the population uses that just because not many people have that much money to be living off of. And then the third one is only 1% of the population does this. And it's basically setting up multiple sources of income. And so you have income over time. So you have these like different avenues of income and income streams and businesses that you have your hands in that you get income from. And that's that would be the ideal, right? Because that means that you don't have to work harder to make money. That just means that you can kind of set up these other businesses, these other income streams, and then you get, once they're set up and they're running, then you get a lot of that passive income just coming to you, right? So I encourage everybody who's listening to this who are business owners, and most of you are, right? If you're a financial advisor, or I would even say a wholesaler, you're basically like you're running your own business. But think about that model and think about, okay, how can this operate more efficiently without me, right? So that's about like doing like automation and getting your business to run for you and working smarter and not harder. And that takes a totally different type of thinking and frequency of your thoughts, really, to be thinking about those like multiple sources of income. So I just wanted to share that because I find it really interesting. And there's a reason why only 1% of the population is doing that, right? And it's because those are the wealthiest people who really understand how money works and how earning money works. And so now that you know that, you can start thinking about that, right? When you don't have the awareness of that, then the thoughts aren't even going to be able to come into your mind. So start like asking yourself, like, what are some other income streams that you would want to have, right? You don't have to think about how you're going to do it. Just start thinking about like, what other income streams would you like to have? Okay, so a couple other tips and mindset shifts about money that these like super abundant people have is the number one is that they look at money as a servant. So they understand that money is a servant and it doesn't control them. Now, many of us are controlled by money. So if you're in a job that you don't necessarily like, or maybe sometimes you're doing things outside of your integrity because of money, then you're being controlled by money. So I would really ask you to think about your relationship with money, and do you see it as a servant or are you controlled by it? So many people that I talk to, prospects and clients, we all want freedom. That's what we crave the most. And some people are really even afraid to admit that they want more money. But we do crave that freedom, right? And I think that that just shows too that we're so adverse to allowing ourselves to want money, to just say that, we think that like we have these beliefs, right? Money is the root of all evil, or more money, more problems. And I talked about this on the last video, but we have those beliefs that are inhibiting the money in our lives. So first of all, allow yourself to want what you want. And if it is more money, then that's okay. Right. And just allow that, right? But just, it's really if money is controlling you, that's what gets us out of integrity. And that's what gets us like out of alignment with who we really are. And that's the sticky and icky part of money. And so just keep that distinction in mind. So is money your servant, or are you being controlled by money? Now, the next thing is that money must circulate. And the wealthiest people understand this, okay? They understand that money is an energy and that it's meant to be circulated. So think about the money that you have, and are you always looking to hoard your money instead of like giving it freely? So I talk a lot with my clients and on a lot of other videos, if you've watched me, about how do you feel when you have to pay for something, because that's going to tell you a lot of your beliefs about money. So if you feel like really constricted and tight when you have to pay for something, or if you get like a bill in the mail, or maybe you have to, like my windshield just got a crack in it, right? And I know I'm going to have to pay for that. When you get an expense like that, do you give it freely, or does it feel uncomfortable? Do you physically feel tighter? So understand that money should be in circulation, and know with every check you write, with every bill that you pay, with everything that you buy, that you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing with money, which is keeping it circulated. And I think that that really helps kind of change your belief in that energy dynamic behind how you're looking at money. And the last thing I want to talk about is needs versus desire. So a lot of times we say that we need something, but in reality, we just desire it. Okay. And needs keep us in the lack mentality, whereas desire keeps us focused more on abundance. And that's a big thing that I talk about in even the podcast series, about just our mindset going from, we can't focus on both. It's either focused on lack or you're focused on abundance. So when you're focused on needs, if you think, oh, I need this, right? I need to make this money to pay for my mortgage or whatever it is. When you're focused on the need, you're really in that lack mentality. So think about, in reality, most of your needs are met, right? You probably live in a nice home and you're watching this on a computer. So your needs are met. So then that means that most of the things that you want are desires. So distinguish between the needs and desires, and it's going to help you get into a different frequency and a different way of thinking about what you really want in life, and allow yourself to want what you want. Cool. So I'm going to talk about now some of the questions that I've been getting the last couple of days. So one of the podcasts that it was all about goals, right? And I know a lot of people have heard me talk about goals before, and how I call it like a big, beautiful OMG goal is what we really should have in our lives. And I got this question a couple times through text messages, and I get this question a lot from just the prospects that I talk to. People are asking, like, how do you figure out what you even want? Because a lot of times we become so disconnected from what we want, and we're just going through the motions in life that we really have absolutely no idea. So a great place to start is, well, what do you don't want? Okay, and start listing what you don't want, because really, like, in your heart, you do know what you want. It's just covered, right? So we need to start unearthing that a bit. But start by writing down what you don't want, because that's going to really help. Um, the next thing is is to spend some time in visualization. Okay, like, just think, if you had all the time, all the money, all the resources, like, what would you be doing with your life? I always like to tell people to use the lottery ticket example. Like, right now I think the Powerball is like up over $1 billion. Like, pretend that you won that. What would you be doing? Because that's going to get you into that frequency of desires and get your thoughts on really what you want and out of, like, what you need, or what you think you need, at least. So it'll really start kind of stretching your mindset. So first, just start with what you don't want, and then start maybe doing that lottery ticket exercise. The other thing that's a great exercise to do is think about, like, your ideal perfect day. And I tell everyone to tune into the feelings of that. Like, how do you want to feel every day when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel? Maybe energized, excited to start the day, grateful for a new day, grateful for the home that you're in, and start tuning into those feelings that you want to feel every day, because really, feeling is the secret. And if we can get clear on the feelings, then maybe it doesn't really matter how it shows up, if it's going to put you in that feeling state. Because really, at the end of the day, everything we want it because we think we're going to feel a certain way after we get it. So if you can tune into those feelings now, then maybe something shows up that you never even thought of, but it's giving you those feelings every day. Another question that I got, or I guess it's not really a question, but somebody said that figuring out what I want scares me. And I hear this actually often, and it's interesting because, to me, that means that on some level you do know what it is that you want, and you know you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And so I would just explore that. Um, and, like, what is it even that's so scary about it, right? Um, this is, when you do, like, personal development and personal growth stuff, it can be vulnerable, but that's actually a good thing, because we're really getting to the heart of who we are and why we're here on this planet. And there's nothing to be scared of, right? Uh, there's that saying, like, everything that we want is on the other side of our comfort zone, or freedoms on the other side of fear. All of that is true. So when we can get outside of our comfort zone, when we can scare ourselves a little bit, that actually is all a good thing. And I say too, like, when we're creating that goal, if it doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough, because it actually should scare you, because it should equally excite and scare you at the same time, because the purpose of the goal isn't to get, it's to grow. It's about who we become on our way to it. And so if you can accomplish your goal now being the same person you are, then it's not really a big enough goal, right? You need to get something that is changing you on the inside. And the only way to get to that is developing something that, or thinking of your want that scares you. So if figuring out what you want is scaring you, it's because you do know what it is that you want on a certain level, and you're just too afraid to face it. So, I think a great tip or thing to do when you feel fear is to write down what you're actually scared of, because it takes things out of your mind and it puts it out on paper. And so it helps bring order to our mind. It helps get it out of our mind, because when it's just festering in our mind, those thoughts tend to stay and linger and haunt us, basically. But when you can get it out on a piece of paper, it liberates that in some way. And then it looks kind of silly, right? You see that your fear is kind of written out, and then you burn it, or you rip it up, or you do something symbolically, and you kind of get release that. So that would be my tip for that. Somebody asked to explain more about the goal achieving mechanism in our minds. So this concept is from the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And it's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. And so Maxwell Maltz discovered that like inside of our brains, we have a cybernetic mechanism. So a cybernetic mechanism is something like autopilot on a plane, right? You just punch in a destination and then the machine is going to take you there. And that's what goes on in our brains as well. Now, the problem is that if you aren't filling that destination with something that you consciously want, it's getting filled by default. And most of us are so focused on what we don't want that that's what's getting filled into that cybernetic mechanism. So more things in your life, that you don't want keep showing up because that's what your mind thinks, because that is what you're so focused on. So that's why it's so important to have a goal and to input that into your mind so that your mind has something to work with, right? It has that goal to bring you towards. And again, that book is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and it's an awesome book. Highly recommend it. And I have all my clients read and study that during the 6 months that they work with me. Somebody asked that most of their goals that they've set in their lives are practical and stretch goals, and that has served me well, they say. Why do I need an OMG goal? So in the podcast, I talk about the 3 different types of goals: a practical goal, which is something that you already know how to do; a stretch goal, that's something that you think that you can do; and then the OMG goal, and that's really our heart's desires. That's what we really want. And that's what I'm talking about when I say it should equally excite and scare us. The tempting thing is to make those practical and the stretch goals. And that's what I had done my whole life until I learned about that we can really make our fantasies and our hopes and dreams into a goal. And so it's tempting because you think that you can do it. And so you think, okay, I'm going to achieve this and it's going to give me momentum and I'm going to keep going and keep going. And that's great, right? And if that's the way you want to live, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. But there's a reason why, whoever asked me that question is signed up for this podcast series. Okay. And it's probably because like instinctively, that you're meant for more. Okay. You know that you're capable of so much more. We have so much potential inside of us. None of us have even scratched the surface on what we're truly capable of doing. I mean, we just have infinite loads of potential inside of us. So when we set that OMG goal, we're going to hit all those practical and stretch goals along the way. We're going to hit huge things. And that's the thing about like visionaries, that they set these huge goals for themselves. And what ends up happening is that like what they are able to accomplish is so much more in order of magnitude than ordinary people, because even if they fail at that really big goal, like all those little goals that they're hitting on the way to it are just so much more than what most people are doing. And so when you set those practical and those stretch goals, like, okay, your practical and stretch goals are down here, right? Your OMG is here. So you're just going to like keep climbing. And so I just say, and there's really not a lot of inspiration behind those practical or those stretch goals, right? And if we want to accomplish something bigger, if we want to live a truly rich and fulfilled life, we need to go after something really big. So I would recommend forgetting those practical and those stretch goals and just focusing on the big OMG, because you will get to those practical and those stretch goals on the way. How do we know if we have limiting beliefs, and what are they? So I talk a lot about the power of belief, and we can never go beyond what we believe, what we think that we can do, right? So working with your beliefs is so, so important. The thing is, like most of us, most humans, it's just a part of being human, have limiting beliefs in our minds. And I don't think it's necessarily imperative that you need to figure out what they are. We just need to accept new, better beliefs that are going to serve us. So it doesn't really matter if you know what they are. Just open your mind to accept new beliefs, right? New beliefs like the less I work, the more money I make, or that there's an infinite source of supply of money and there's abundance all around me, or whatever it is that you want to believe. Open your mind up to believing those things. um, and accept them as true. And then you're already like halfway on your way. So believe, and you're halfway there. You're more than halfway there, right? If you really believe it, then you're going to be able to do it. So I help people really even just develop that belief in themselves, develop that belief in what's possible in this world. And that's what the really cool thing is. And I talk a lot about in my journey, I've developed a belief in myself that I never had before, and that's been the biggest gift. And then somebody else had asked, which is somewhat similar, how do we know what's going on in our subconscious mind? So, well, that's what's the interesting thing, right? It's subconscious. So we don't exactly know. But if you start bringing a lot more awareness to yourself and to your habits and just raising that level of conscious awareness of yourself, you can start to see what's in your subconscious. The other great way to look at what's in your subconscious is just to look at the outside world around you, because the outside world is always a reflection of what's going on internally. So look at the results that you have in your life, right? How are your like sales results? How is your income? Like take a look at your income the last 5 years. Has it stayed about the same? Well, then you can see where your subconscious mind is set when it comes to the money that you're making. Um, or like, what's your relationship like? Because that's also a reflection of what you believe in your subconscious mind. So start paying attention to your outside world. That's going to give you a lot of clues as to what's going on the inside. So thank you to everyone who signed up for my 5 Days to a Millionaire Mindset podcast. And hope you're enjoying it so far. I'm excited for the next 3 days. I'm going to do another live on Thursday to answer any more questions that come in and give you a few more tips on how to shift your mindset to that millionaire mindset. The podcast is much more in depth and kind of goes over the process that I help all of my clients with to completely transform their mind. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't signed up, I'll throw the link in the comments, and there's still time to register, and you can just kind of catch up on those first 4 episodes. They're between 5 and 10 minutes each, so it's super quick. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to hearing from you all soon.